Good evening. This is the first day of the season of Lent for the year 2020. And we just heard the gospel story about what it means to fast. Now, I have been doing some reading about fasting, and you know, it has become a fad. Many of us have learned that we need to diet or lose weight, and one of the methods is to eat for a few days and then take one day where you don't eat anything. Fasting is not eating anything. Now, I'd like to talk about why we would fast and put it into the spiritual context. One of the reasons that fasting is not part of just the Christian tradition. It's part of many traditions, and it has been present long before even Jesus Christ came into the world. The reason it's important is because when we fast or when we deprive ourselves of food, and that can be just depriving ourselves of meat or a particular food. I know my friends like to say that they won't have any chocolate during Lent. My grandchildren have told me in the car that they have decided to give up candy for Lent. This is the first time they've ever thought of anything, and but they still can have desserts. That's what they told me. Not candy, but they can have cake. Okay, anyway. There's something that happens to us physically, something that happens to us viscerally when we deprive ourselves of something. So what happens during a fast is that we have the intersection between the physical and the metaphysical, or the body and the spirit. So abstaining from anything, and it doesn't have to be food, brings us into a consciousness that we can utilize and use it as prayer. When the stomach starts to growl, or you need something, or you want something, like candy or chocolate, the spiritual discipline is to remember God in that moment and to say to yourself, okay, God loves me, I love God, I am grateful. Just brings us into the acknowledgement that we are doing this for a purpose. I just, in my research, found that it was a custom in the beginning of in our country to fast. So I have this quote. In 1774, when the British Parliament ordered an embargo on the port of Boston, the legislative body of the state of Virginia called for a day of public humiliation, meaning being humble, prayer and fasting. George Washington wrote in his journal that he fasted on that day. In 1798, when the United States was on the verge of war with France, John Adams proclaimed a day of solemn humiliation, prayer, and fasting. So it has been even part of our history. And please don't take this to mean that we have a Christian country. It doesn't identify us as Christians. It identifies us as a people of God, not a specific tradition. So when we take up a spiritual discipline, and I'm going to suggest a few options, it is like giving muscle to our spirit. The more we exercise it, the more we do, the stronger we become in terms of our faith. So here are some ideas. Think of someone that you really don't like. That's somebody you work with, someone in politics. Last night there was a plethora of them on stage. I watched that debate. It was so difficult to watch. And then put yourself into that person's shoes. Use that as a discipline. When you want to say something negative, go inward and ask yourself, what would God say to you in that regard? So I would put that in the category of emotional or psychological discipline. Some of us, especially in America, are addicted to shopping. If you are and you don't have money to spend, stop. Use that as a discipline. Maybe you have to go shopping for some things, but make a decision. Ask God to help you. Do I really need to have that thing? Does it fit in my house, in my closet, in my cupboard? Because so many of us accumulate stuff. And I have a theory about that. My theory is that we lack art, artistic, beautiful, aesthetic things. And we see them in the stores and they're beautifully displayed and we want to have them. Social media. Some of us are addicted to social media. Even my own grandchildren are right now on their iPads. Using the internet games. Are we addicted? Are those things that draw us in? And do we need to spend our time doing that? So each time during this Lent that you feel the tug to do something that you have made a decision not to do, you think, why did I choose this? And how is God present for me, with me, to help me through this particular dilemma? Many years ago, I took up the discipline. I was riding on the bus. I may actually have told the story before. And I was frightened of the people on the bus. They were different. Sometimes in those days, there were youngsters with a boombox on their shoulders, and you get on a bus and a boom, 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 and they're just waiting for you to say, would you please turn that down? So I developed a discipline of trying to focus myself on the love that the parent had for this child, and that God loves us all, whether we have a boombox or not. So I invite you, and I will be speaking to that from the prayer book, to a Holy Lent. Dig deep, find where you are struggling, and ask God to help you.